I'm sure you know that the Hillary Clinton and her campaign feel as though Comey and his actions, the FBI director, had a very negative effect on her campaign. Is it fair to say that as a general note, you wish that basic protocols had been upheld throughout the year when it came to dealing with investigations that could have affected the election?
You know, I think that, people are very close to this issue right now, and certainly the Clinton campaign is going to be closer than anyone to this issue, and so they're going to have strong feelings and strong views about that. And as I said, I allow people to have those feelings and to express them as they choose. That's their right. What we've said here is that we've handled the investigation in a way that was consistent with the way all investigations were handled. Unusual circumstances developed. The FBI director has spoken about why he made a decision to go in a particular route and how he made that decision. So I'm going to let that stand as it is.
But it's been reported that you disagreed with his decision, especially the decision to write that letter in October. Is that reporting accurate?
Well, look, I can tell you that discussions were had at the highest levels of the department. My views were made known. They were communicated to him. But as I said, I think that there's going to be a lot of analysis about this. And I think we'll all be looking at a whole host of factors that went into this election cycle, ranging from that issue to, again, the ongoing investigation and review into Russia's activities, to activities that were occurring throughout the country at the local level. I think we're all going to be looking at that for a long time.
Take me back to June 27th. You and President Clinton were both in Phoenix, Arizona. He saw your plane on the tarmac. He got on board your plane. How did that visit happen? Did somebody say, hey, President Clinton's outside, he wants to come in, or did he just come in?
Well, I can't say what President Clinton saw or thought because I wasn't in communication with him before that, so I don't know what was in his mind.
No, but did an FBI agent say, hey, he's outside, he wants to come in?
All I can tell you is that we were landing and we were moving on with our program, and we were about to leave and about to go into our cars and move on to our evening events, and it was communicated to me that he wanted to say hello, and that was all the information that we gained.
Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway told me that that meeting, President Clinton coming to you, quote, bothered some voters because it, quote, played right into the culture of corruption, the notion that there's, quote, different set of rules for elites like the Clintons. Looking back, do you wish that when he came over, you said, we really shouldn't talk? It would be really inappropriate, and hello and goodbye?
So, as I've said at the time, I think like days after that meeting, I regretted not seeing that issue and not seeing around that corner. I regretted viewing it as just, again, as the number of people who come by and say hello.
It didn't cross your mind when you were sitting there like, oh, somebody's going to make a big deal out of this?
And our conversation went on a lot longer, certainly, than I had anticipated, because it was just going to be, hello, how are you? And everyone was going to go on about their evening, as far as we were concerned.
He's a talker.
He is a talker,
yeah.
Yes, he is a talker. I really do believe, Jake, that things happen. And as I said, I wish I had seen around that corner and not had that discussion with the former president, as innocuous as it was, because it did give people concern. It did make people wonder, is it going to affect the investigation that's going on? And that's not something that was an unreasonable question for anyone to ask. And my view is, and always has been, that when you are in public life or even in private life and you make a mistake, you own it. And you talk about it right away. You let people know what you're going to do to deal with the impact of that mistake. And my concern was, what impact was that going to have on people's views of the Department of Justice and the work that we were doing?
So in retrospect, I'm sorry, Mr. President, it'd be inappropriate for us to talk? You wish you'd said that?
Well, I do regret sitting down and having a conversation with him, because it did give people concern. And as I said, my greatest concern has always been making sure that people understand that the Department of Justice works in a way that's independent and looks at everybody equally. And when you do something that gives people a reason to think differently, that's a problem. It was a problem for me. It was painful for me. And so I felt it was important to clarify it as quickly and as clearly and as cleanly as possible.
Do you think that Director Comey's press conference was also affected by this, the idea that he wanted to be as transparent as possible in that summer press conference because of this impression that some people might have because Bill Clinton came to you that day?
You know, I didn't speak to the director about why he had his press conference before he did it. We learned of it right before that. My view is he was trying to be as transparent as possible in a matter that was of great attention and that was generating a lot of attention.
But certainly if Bill Clinton hadn't gotten on the tarmac that time and gone to you, things might have been different. You would have had more say. You would have been able to control Comey more. It might have changed the letter that he gave at the end there.
I don't think that it would have changed his view of what he had to say or not say to Congress. I mean, that was what he based his letter on. And so
you would have deferred to him?
And I also can't speculate also as to how anyone might have considered that view differently at all.
I know that the uptick in hate crimes around the election has been an issue of focus for you. Why do you think there was an uptick around the election?
We've been seeing this uptick really in the last several years. The report that the FBI just issued focused on 2015 and saw a rise in hate crimes overall and a rather alarmingly large increase in hate crimes directed against Muslim Americans. And certainly we've gotten more reports of incidents over the last several months, and those reports are under investigation also. And so we're watching it very, very carefully. So I think it's a combination of things. I think the rhetoric, certainly around the election, makes people, it awakens certain views in people, and they may or may not feel empowered to act on it. My advice to the new administration would be to look at this issue very carefully as we are. And I know that they'll take public safety very seriously, and I leave it to them as to how they want to respond to it. For me, it's important to talk to these groups and these communities who are feeling concerns, who are feeling anxiety over the statistics, over the numbers, over the rhetoric, over the freedom that some people seem to feel at this point in time to just express hate. You know, look, and obviously what we do in the department is defend the First Amendment as well. You know, we defend to the death people's right to say things, no matter how hateful they are at times. But you've always got to wonder, why is it so important to some people to express themselves in the most vitriolic and negative terms possible? But I'll leave that for people to consider for themselves.
We're sitting in a room with portraits of your predecessors, Elliot Richardson, Janet Reno, Bobby Kennedy.
Yes.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I would like, and again, you can never pick your legacy.
Right.
People are going to look at the body of work, and things will stand out. But I would hope that the legacy of my term here as Attorney General would be the time that the Department of Justice reached out to all Americans and made sure that no matter where they were from, where they looked like, where they lived, that the Department of Justice reached out to them to hear their voices and connect them to the deepest, deepest elements of justice, of equality, of freedom in this country.
Madam Attorney General, thank you so much for your time. Good
Thanks,
luck to
Jake.
you.